God of War Ragnarok deserves Game of the Year. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want spoilers, please go play this masterpiece of a game. It is absolutely beautiful, and you are not allowed to watch this video until you play it, period. Now, if you're still here, I think God of War Ragnarok deserves Game of the Year. It's definitely the most beautiful game I've played this year. Elden Ring is close, don't get me wrong, and Stray is up there. Elden Ring is beautiful, environmental design is great. I've made a video about Elden Ring, about what I think about the game design in Elden Ring, but I think God of War Ragnarok tops Elden Ring in every aspect, save for maybe boss design and combat. We'll talk about that. Before I go on about game design and the principles and all that jazz that I usually talk about, I want to get out there. If you've seen my previous 2 videos on God of War, you already know this. God of War is very, very close to me. I did not play the original trilogy when I was a kid. God of War 2018 was my first entry into the franchise. I have played the original trilogy since then. God of War 2018 literally changed the course of my life. If you want to know more about that, go watch my video on God of War 2018. So I have a lot to be thankful to Sony Santa Monica for, and obviously that's going to probably affect my opinion at least a little bit. But I try to be objective when I make statements like this game deserves Game of the Year, or this game is the best game of all time, or it's in my top 5, or whatever. I want my top 5 to mean something. So God of War 2018 previously has been in contention for my favorite game of all time and for my best game of all time. It's definitely my favorite. Best, it competes with games like Doom and Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild and whatnot. You know, it's in contention. But God of War Ragnarok, I think, does belong at the top of my best games of all time list. When people finished playing God of War 2018, we were left with a lot of questions, you know, about Loki, about Kratos' wife, and about where the story might go. There are a lot of clues in the game, a lot of things that might hint towards other God of War settings in the future, or maybe hinting towards Atreus being the main character that we play as in another God of War game. So we had a lot of questions going into this, especially with, you know, how is Thor going to play in? How are the other Norse gods going to play in? Is Kratos going to abandon his principles that he has kind of come to over the course of God of War 2018 and before and the events leading up? Or is he going to go back to the way he was, a god killer, a monster? Ragnarok has us pick right back up with the father-son dynamic, and I dare say it even does it better. Part of that is due to the fact that Loki is older now, and also he's trying to become Loki. He's trying to become this person that he thinks he's prophesied to become. And he keeps a lot of secrets from Kratos. In my video on the Ragnarok trailers, I theorized that maybe Loki would end up getting tricked into killing Kratos, and we would continue the theme of patricide from the original games. You know, maybe things would be undone in that way. Maybe that would create the potential for the spin-offs with Atreus being the main character. This game didn't go there. Ragnarok kept the through thread from God of War 2018 going. It kept it going, but it kept it in contention, right? It kept hinting at these things like Kratos dying, Kratos wanting to spend time with Loki, and you see that very well executed throughout this game. And the story basically follows them along this path of contention and secret keeping and not telling each other everything, right? And a lot of it is because Odin invites Loki to Asgard, and he talks with him in private, where Mimir and Kratos could not hear. It makes Kratos afraid that Loki has been tricked by Odin, that Odin has promised him something that he doesn't know better than to reject. As we continue on throughout the game, we get to play as Atreus. And we see him try to fix things on his own at first, try to push things forward towards the direction that he thinks they should go. After he finds these hidden prophecies in the murals that they had previously visited, but now he can go into them and see more. And then Atreus comes to the Ironwood, the giant sanctuary, right? And he learns from his new friend, Angrboda, who is another giant who is still alive. And she shows him the mural that Kratos saw, the part of the prophecy wall that he lifted up and didn't tell Atreus about, where he saw him lying dead in Atreus' hands. When Atreus sees this, it changes a lot. He no longer wants to charge headlong into Ragnarok necessarily. Sometimes he does, but he wants to do it in a way that's not going to result in Kratos dying. He becomes obsessed with trying to unwrite prophecy or deviate from the path of prophecy that he so far thinks can't be done, but it's this conflict where he thinks that prophecy has to be fulfilled and must come true, but also he has to change it because he can't live in a world where Kratos dies, especially where he dies in his hand and Atreus is Odin's servant. And the game culminates with a resolution where Atreus and Kratos admit to each other that they know about the prophecy of Kratos dying, and Kratos tells Atreus a little bit of what happened with the Norns, and that resolution carries them through Ragnarok. When Ragnarok happens, they decide that they must be better and that they're not going to be god killers. They unite some of the Asgardians and they turn Thrud and Sif against Odin. Kratos even succeeds at breaking Thor a little bit, and Odin shows how little he cares for his family when it means getting what he wants, and he kills Thor. In the end, they don't want to kill Odin. They put his soul in a marble. Sindri ends up killing him by smashing his marble. So I appreciate this version of events that happened in Ragnarok. I think it makes a lot of sense with the God of War 2018 through line of Kratos no longer being the God of War, wanting to be a father figure, wanting to teach his son how to be better and not let Atreus become the bloody ghost of Midgard. Overall, I think they executed the story very well. The stuff with Freya executed perfectly in my opinion. Her coming to forgive Kratos, kind of, and redirecting her vengeance towards Odin. And then, when faced with the decision to kill him or not, which Kratos gives to her because he doesn't want to deny her the choice again, like he did with Baldur, she realizes that it's not going to bring her peace. It's not going to make her whole. So she lets Loki do what he wants with it. I guess one of the only problems I had with the story was the whole thing with Loki and the bag of marbles and the giants. I think that maybe should have been touched on a little bit more in this game, but they also might be planning to explore that in a spin-off game or a DLC or some sort of expansion where we get to do that story as Loki. I'm down for that. I think that would be very cool. If they do that, then I forgive them for not going into it more in this game. It just made me feel just a tad bit incomplete, you know? It bugged that completionist urge that we have as players. But moving on from that, the emotion of this game as a beautiful piece of art is outstanding. Like, the amount of times they reuse these motifs with the beautiful horns and violins and whatnot of the God of War main theme, of Faye's theme, Farewell to Mother, the mountaintop theme, all of these things, there's hints of these themes, these motifs throughout the entire soundtrack of Ragnarok, and it never gets old. It's never overused or overdone. I think the music was just perfect in this game, and I was overjoyed to see Bear McCreary as a game character, Rabe, in the tavern. I thought that was awesome. The level design, I have one tiny little problem with the level design, which is that they kept these markings and yellow prints and all that kind of stuff that they had in God of War 2018. In that game, they explained that Faye had seen all of this and it was on her mural, and she left these handprints throughout. In this game, those were still there. They weren't all handprints, and they were a bit different, but they're never explained. It's never explained why there's all these markings still guiding you along. The characters never go, oh, those markings, they must be from a giant that's guiding us along. Obviously, we're on the right path. This is what Faye wanted. They never do that. And I think some kind of acknowledgement of that could have been good, because otherwise it's just glowing markings that tell you where to go, not explained. And I have got a problem with that from level design perspective, because it's not fully immersive, but it's a minor complaint because it didn't take away from the flow of the levels or the funness of the levels or the beauty of the levels. It's just a small critique. Environmentally, the game is beautiful. When you're going through places like Hell and you see the Raven and you see Gorm, and then places like Vanaheim. Vanaheim is beautiful. Svartalfheim, beautiful. I loved how in Vanaheim, even though this is Norse, there were hints of Celtic throughout because they're all these woodland magic creatures. The whole Vanir thing being that Vanir magic is manipulating nature and using nature and all that kind of stuff. A lot of it is quite similar to a lot of Celtic mythology. So for them to use those hints of Irish and Celtic folk music that kind of just made their way into the soundtrack, I think was awesome. Especially as you're going through these woodland areas and fighting these woodland creatures. I thought that was great. My only problem with Vanaheim, those plants are so annoying, especially the ones that spit at you. Not just the ones that launch the big globs of venom, but the ones that just sit up there and spit at you and you can't just hit with an axe. Really annoying, especially when you're trying to get one of those red chests or a bonus thing and they're just spitting at you the entire time while you're trying to figure it out. It's like, come on guys, I'm trying to solve a puzzle here. And then when you get to Asgard, just looking across the expanses of Asgard and how beautiful it was, I thought that was great. I really liked the parts of this game as well where you play as Atreus. The combat with Atreus feels awesome. I think I mentioned in my previous Ragnarok video that I was a little worried about where the combat would go in this game. Maybe it would feel a little bit too much the same, but I'm pleased to say they changed it quite a bit because Kratos is quite similar, right, until you get the spear. There are some differences and the enemies feel nice and fresh, but you also play maybe not half the game, but a good amount of the game as Atreus, you know, whether it's going through Ironwood with Angerboda, or going through Hell with Thrud, or Muspelheim with Thor. These sections all feel fantastic, you know, it's fun to fight alongside Thrud and Thor, and it's just nice to have a fresh experience when you're fighting as Atreus or exploring as Atreus. Hearing what Atreus has to say without Kratos being there. So I really enjoyed all of that, and it made it feel nice and fresh. Again, the story was just so beautiful, and all of these things culminated together to just make this game so beautiful, so enjoyable, so emotional. All of those beats just hit so well. You go from sad to overjoyed to scared to sad again to happy to sad. And you get to see the culmination of everything that Kratos and Atreus were working on with their father-son dynamic in 2018 and see what that results in Ragnarok, the tension and then the resolution at the end. And also Kratos being able to accept that Atreus is ready. He can go and fend for himself. He's okay. You know, he lets him go back to Asgard. The only other complaint I have about this game is the stuff with Tyr. They made you feel like, and maybe it's not so much a complaint, but more like, you know, I just finished playing the game and it was only a few hours ago when I experienced Tyr not actually being Tyr and actually being a raven of Odin, allowing Odin to come to us in this place that was safe from him and betray us and try to get his mask back. Maybe I'm just still a little too hurt from that betrayal as the player myself, but it is a little bit confusing because it makes you think, well, was this Odin the entire time? When we rescued Tyr in that mine, did Odin know we were going to be there and Odin was Tyr then? Was all of this about Tyr being peaceful now and teaching Kratos and Atreus to hold back a little bit and trying to dissuade them from war? Was that all Odin? I can see it. I can see it all being Odin. But I can also see it being Tyr for most of it and then Odin capturing Tyr along the way and disguising himself as Tyr at some point. I think it's more likely that Odin was Tyr the entire time because Kratos says Odin was Tyr, so Odin knows about Groa's hidden prophecy that he didn't know about before because he was Tyr then. And so certainly Kratos thinks that Tyr was never real. So yeah, that was interesting. I still don't know how to feel about it. I would like it if it was at least Tyr at the beginning, but I get it if it was Odin the entire time, and it was really well done. I felt I felt like that knife into Brock's chest stabbed me. I was such an unexpected betrayal, such an unexpected surprise right there. And then Odin leaves, and you're like, whoa, like where's Tyr? Was that not Tyr? Wait, is Tyr still here? Was that Odin the whole time? Like all these questions flowing through you. I was shocked. I sat back in my seat and just took it in for a couple minutes after it happened. So all in all, with the culmination of all these principles, and the music and environment and level design and combat and characters and freshness and through lines and emotion, I think they all culminate to make me really, really, really want this game to win Game of the Year. Again, like I said, Elden Ring is in contention. It is definitely the strongest contender with God of War Ragnarok for Game of the Year. But I think because of Elden Ring's lack of clarity on story, it suffers from that same thing that all Souls games suffer from, where story is left a little bit more abstract, a little bit less told explicitly. More of an implied story and all that kind of stuff. It makes you a little bit more detached, which is what those games are going for. I think as a piece of art, God of War Ragnarok, because it has all these elements in it, is just more beautiful overall than Elden Ring is, and more joyful and engaging and immersive to play through than Elden Ring is. So I think it deserves to beat it, but I would understand if Elden Ring or even Stray beat God of War Ragnarok for Game of the Year, but definitely I think that I should go to Ragnarok. If you like this video, let me know what you thought in the comments, and go watch this video next.